everyone, Nick here, and around 6 months ago I had made a video called Top 10 Houseplants, where I had recently hit 100 plants and went through and picked out the 10 that stood out the most to me. So now that it's been half a year and I am almost at 200 plants, I thought it would be kind of fun to go through and once again pick out 10 of the plants that stand out most and have the largest place in my heart. So I'm sure many of you feel this way as well, but I don't like to play favorites with my houseplants. I do like to treat them all like they are my babies and that they are equal, but inevitably there are a few that do stand out amongst the rest. There are probably more than 10, but I'm going to narrow this down to 10 just for the sake of this video. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The list in today's video is going to be in no particular order, so I'm just going to be doing this 1 through 10. But number 1 in today's video is going to be Peperomia tetragona. You will probably see this plant sold as Peperomia puteolata or puteolata. It's recently been reclassified, but its common names are stilt peperomia or parallel peperomia, I guess because of the patterns on the leaves. But this peperomia is just so incredible. It's one of my favorite peperomias, tied for another one that you will see later in this video. But I really love these because, one, they grow really easily, they don't need a lot of water, and they're often pretty inexpensive. They're sold as usually a small size. I can never normally find them at the shop in less than like a 3-inch pot, so that means that they're generally pretty inexpensive. They're normally this size, and what happens is they grow upright, and then once they get a little too tall, they start to trail down like this, which I just think is so beautiful. And once it gets a little too long, I start to notice that it shoots out more babies from its stem, or like where the plant meets the soil. And it just gets really prolific and beautiful, and it grows really well in a bright windowsill. I can't really grow them outside of a windowsill. The leaves just get really small as it grows, so I definitely recommend, if you buy this plant, keeping it in a windowsill. And I normally feel the leaves. They're really like cardboard thick, so I give them a little squeeze. I do this for a lot of my plants that have more succulent leaves. I give them a little bit of a squeeze, and I can tell that this probably needs some water right now because its leaves are kind of folding in like this and not bending and breaking, which would normally happen if I do that. So just something to keep in mind is I don't like to give any tips, that are going to cause you to kill your plants. I always recommend like filling the soil if you don't really know, if you're not too familiar with your plants. But this plant I've just had for so long, I just know at this point that I can just feel the leaf and know when it needs water. So really awesome trait for a plant to have. If you watched my last video, my large plant haul video, you are no stranger to this plant. This is a Sansevieria Bantel sensation. It is just beautiful. Oh my god, I'm not even sure if the camera's doing it justice. This plant is just a work of art. It doesn't look like a plant. It looks fake. I don't even have words to describe this plant. It is just utterly beautiful. It has everything I'm looking for in a plant. It is just so abstract. It's just so funky. I love the way it looks in this like dark clay pot, the basalt pots, whatever it's called. I love this plant so much. I love Sansevierias. I think I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. I feel like incredibly confident anytime I purchase a Sansevieria, no matter how much money it costs, that it's gonna live, because this plant is just unkillable. The only way you can kill this plant, and like most plants in general, is by overwatering them. It is just the easiest way to kill your plants. So Sansevierias, I water mine because they're in terracotta, probably like every 2 or 3 weeks, but like if it's in a plastic pot or a ceramic or anything that holds onto water a little bit too much, I would say once a month is fine. As for soil with my Sansevierias, I don't buy cactus and succulent soil because I just have so much regular potting soil around. What I do is, if you watched my fertilizing video with trash can grow, I used what I typically do for soil in plants that are like my aroids and my Sansevierias that like to drain a little bit more. I use 2 parts potting soil and 1 part perlite, and I find that works really well. Terracotta always works best, but I will use ceramic pots as well because I like the glazed look, because it looks a lot more put together and fancier sometimes than just terracotta. But just something to keep in mind if you find that you might be overwatering your Sansevierias and killing them, because I find that some people do say that's a thing, but I just find less is more. But you do need to remember to water them. It's not like a ZZ plant where you can just forget about watering it forever because it holds on to the water in its tubers. In this case, these roots will dry out and they won't recover very well from completely drying out. So just something to keep in mind. So let's just get this one out of the way. If you follow me on Instagram or YouTube, you are 100% expecting this to be on this video. String of Hearts is going to be my number 3. Latin is Ceropegia woodii. I love this plant. This is like, you all know, it's my favorite plant. It just is the one that I rely on at all times. It is a plant that thrives off neglect. It loves bright light as well. I water this plant probably once every 6 weeks, and here's my trick. So I will take the plant, before I water it, I'll go onto like the edge of the pot or just like in the soil, like not in the soil, but like the leaves that are like in the top of the soil. I give them a little squeeze, similar to the parallel peperomia I was talking about earlier. If they can fold in and have some give to them, or if they almost feel, it sounds weird, but they almost feel like they're rotting when they need water. If it doesn't have any give, don't water it at all. But once it does start to have some give to it, you can water it. But I let this plant get pretty much bone dry. I don't let many of my plants get bone dry because it's not really good for the roots, but this one seems to really appreciate it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this plant really is loving life. And keep in mind, I haven't even had this plant for a year yet. I bought it late last November. It's currently the middle of October. And I had taken over 200 cuttings of this plant for when I was selling it on my Etsy shop, which I know I'm not really doing much with my Etsy shop right now. Bear with me, the weather's getting cool and I'm working full time, but when the spring comes around, I'm planning on doing more with it, so just bear with me. But anyway, this is about the string of hearts. So don't water this plant too much if you have it. These plants typically are not cheap. Something to keep in mind if you find them at your nursery, but something to also keep in mind is that when I bought this plant last year, it was only this big, and now it is crazy, crazy big. And I purchased a few, I found 6-inch hanging baskets at the shop, like from one of our vendors, and we have them there. We have a few, like 2 of them left, and they've grown like a foot already in the 3 weeks that we've had them. So they grow so fast. I keep saying that this plant grows a foot a month and people don't believe me, but like the proof is in the pudding, let me tell you, honey. Number 4 is that other peperomia I mentioned earlier. It is Peperomia quadrangularis. This one was on my wish list for a while and was granted by Steve's Leaves when I did my Steve's Leaves unboxing video. If you haven't already watched that, you can watch it up here after you watch this video. But I have really loved this peperomia. I think it looks a lot similar to the parallel peperomia or the Peperomia tetragona I showed earlier, but this one has a little bit more different characteristics. So like the parallel peperomia is a little bit more cardboardy feeling, a little bit thicker, and it's a little bit more aggressive in the way it grows, versus this one is a little bit more rounded and it just kind of like hangs, more relaxed, and it's a little bit more shiny. So I just really appreciate them for their differences. Since it's a peperomia, I give it really bright light. I have it pulled back a little bit from a south-facing window, or I grow them in an east or west-facing window. But this one is pulled back from a south-facing window, and I water it probably like every 10 to 14 days. It's in the ceramic glazed pot, so I don't need to water it as often as my ones that are in terracotta, that I probably water about once every like 7 to 10 days, depending on how close to a window they are. But you don't want to overwater your peperomias, and you also want to keep them away from drafts. So just something to keep in mind with this winter approaching. Number 5 is a plant that I admittedly didn't really know was as much of a trophy plant until very recently. This is a Aspidistra, elatior variegata, or a variegated cast iron plant. So I had been interested in getting one of these for a long time, but they would always cost a good amount of money. That is until I was recently at a farmer's market here in Philadelphia a few months ago, and I saw this guy sitting on a rack at one of the plant stops, and I asked how much it was, and the guy said $15, and I screamed sold, and I brought it home with me, just because it was a cast iron plant. I'd never seen them variegated. It had a lot of new growth coming in, if you can see, so I was like, this guy's coming home with me. Recently, when I started working at the plant shop, people have been looking for Aspidistras, and they cost so much money for us to purchase wholesale. Like, I'm not even going to say how much it costs us to buy, because the amount we would have to charge is astronomical. Some guy was coming in recently, a plant collector here in Philadelphia, and he was looking for one, and we said how expensive they are, and I pulled up my Instagram photo of this guy and showed him, and he gasped, and he said, "You're a plant connoisseur." So I was like, oh. But like, I didn't tell him how much I spent on this plant, obviously, because $15 for this plant. This is like literally like, my trophy plant. I just want to squeeze it and hug it right now. So it's kind of like this year's find for 2018, just like my 2017 find was my Pink Princess Philodendron I scored for only $8. So yes, one of my new favorite plants. I love it so much, and I just love how easy care it is to maintain. So Aspidistra elatior, 100% recommend, as long as you're not spending hundreds of dollars on it. Number 6 is another plant that was from my plant haul video recently, but it is just a beauty. Too much of a beauty to not love so much. This is a Ficus altissima. So beautiful. This plant, I'm sorry if it's reflecting a little bit of light, but it is just some of the most interesting plant patterns I've seen on a plant before. I feel like this would be commonly mistaken for a Ficus elastica, or the rubber tree. A variegated rubber tree is a different variety, but it's actually a completely different species. I'm pretty sure it is a cultivar of the species altissima, but I just bought them as Ficus altissima, so I haven't really done the research on other than that, but I adore this plant. It is just one of the most striking plants I've seen in a really long time. I was never really into Ficus before, there was the fiddly figs. It took me so long to get one because the internet said they were so tough, and when I finally got one, I realized that it's a really easy plant and it just likes a lot of light and it doesn't like to dry out or be overwatered. So I feel like that was the issue. So I have recently learned that Ficus are amazing plants and they're really, really easy to take care of. So I've been delving a little bit deeper with the more fun Ficus. So you saw my last video, the Ficus Audrey, which is really awesome, but also Ficus altissima, which is just a stunner. These leaves kind of look like they're pixelated. They have that camo pattern that's just stunning. It's already put off a few leaves for me. I'd say only 2 leaves since I bought it. I've only had it for about a month at this point. But it's quickly rose to the top as one of my favorite plants. I love how big and full it is. I feel very confident that one day it's gonna be a nice tree. Well, not a tree, but a nice big bush of Ficus for me. So really loving these plants. And the thing I really appreciate about Ficus is you can buy them at this size and it will get huge one day. It's gonna take a long time, but like there's other plants that we buy that are, like I love my peperomias, but they're never gonna be like the size of the moon one day. So I really do appreciate the plants that we can buy small that will be big monsters one day. So this plant is another one I don't think I really have talked about much on YouTube, similar to my Aspidistra. So this number 7 is Begonia. It's an angelwing begonia. It's called Begonia, My Special Angel. You may remember this plant as one that I was selling on my Etsy shop in the summer. This plant is amazing. It is so beautiful. It grows so easily. I kind of forget about it sometimes. Like I don't let it dry out to a crisp. I let it, it's in my bathroom, so it's right next to the bathroom sink. So I keep my asparagus fern there, so I remember to water it pretty easily, have like good access to the sink. So I never forget about this guy, but you can see it's still pretty wet right now. But I adore it so much. It just grows so well. I had kept 2 of them and they are just really, really, I put them in the same pot and it's just exploded into a little bush of begonia. This is my only begonia. I grow it in an east-facing window in the bathroom, so it gets really good humidity and it gets some morning sun. I really want to try out some more begonias. I'm a little skeptical about trying the Rex begonias, though they're beautiful. I don't feel quite confident I would keep it alive, but I'm very interested in trying some more angelwing begonias once the springtime comes around, because this one is just really, really prolific and went kind of from being like nothing to really, really high on my list in just a few months. So really love this plant. Number 8 is going to be my Monstera Addinsonii totem, or my Swiss cheese totem. This plant you might have remembered seeing in my staking my Monstera Addinsonii video, which I'll link right up here, where I had recently purchased this plant and I got the moss pole to stake it. It was 10 little vines in the pot. I had staked the 2 longest ones to the pole, and literally within a week or 2, pretty much all of the vines had worked their way over to the pole and naturally worked their way in and started climbing up. As some of them have gotten taller, I have staked them into the top, but as you can see, it has completely outgrown the moss pole, and I either need to get a new moss pole or cut it back because we're at the end of the growing season. I'm probably just going to leave it until the spring because it's probably going to stop growing in less than a month anyway. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it for now. I love the way it looks. It looks really, really incredible. A lot of you ask, I got this moss pole on Amazon.com. It's literally the only place I can find it. I don't know why, but it's where you're gonna have to buy it, unfortunately, unless you have another place that you could put in the comments for other people to find it. But totally worth it. I have another Monstera Addins. I've had that one for longer than this one. I've only had this one for a few months versus the other one I've had for over a year. And that one is not doing so well. Something about this moss pole really makes this plant happy. So I can tell you for a fact, I'm going to be buying a few more of these moss poles, one for my pink princess philodendron and one for my Cebu blue pothos as well. And I'm also considering getting one for my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that I recently gotten from Steve's Leaves. So yeah, I really love this plant. If you have a Monstera Addinsonii, I 100% recommend getting a moss pole. I think it's the best thing you can do for this plant. It clearly loves it for me. I give this plant, I get asked really often how to care for this plant. I give this plant really bright indirect light. A small amount of direct sunlight's fine. I have mine in front of a south-facing window. I literally have it right behind the camera right here. So it's like pulled back like a foot or two from the south-facing window away to the right. And so it does get a little bit of that morning sun, but it's not getting hit by that late afternoon sun that's a little too harsh for some plants. So this plant really seems to love it and grows quite effortlessly for me up the moss pole. So yeah, really recommend it. So number 9 is a rather new plant to me. This is a Sissis Rhambo. This is also called a grape leaf ivy plant. And the reason I love this plant so much is because English ivy. I love English ivy. I think it's beautiful, but unfortunately it's not a very good houseplant for us indoors. It requires so much sunlight and it just gets spider mites like that. I just can't even like deal with it. But I love it because it's so urban. Like brick wall and English ivy is like the look that everyone's looking for. So the Cissus looks very similar to ivy, but it's so much easier to care for in my experience thus far. I've only had it for about a month at this point. I'm really enjoying it. It's got that like holly vibe to it. It does have that kind of grape leaf look to it. It also kind of looks like poison ivy like some of you say, but it's a kind of poison ivy if you can rub on your face and you don't need to worry about getting it. Maybe don't rub your houseplants on your face, but it's not poison ivy. But I really love it. It's so urban. It's growing really well. I love its little trendles that it gets. I just think it's just so amazing. Really loving watching this plant grow, and I'm really excited to see how it grows, however long I can keep it alive for. Of course, there's a Calathea on this list. Number 10 is Calathea orbifolia. Really one of my favorite plants. This is the plant for me I saw on social media, and I just had to have it. For some, it was the Pilea peperomioides. For some, it was the philodendron pink princess. For me, it was the Calathea orbifolia. I can't even tell you what it is about this plant that I just love so much. I guess it's because it's beautifully round and it's got these beautiful silver markings on the leaves and it's just so lush and tropical. But unfortunately, Calatheas are really hard to grow. But it's been 2 months. This guy looks perfect and I couldn't be happier. It is just really making me feel like I can care for them. If you watched my last video, you might have heard me mention that I am experimenting with keeping them in the plastic till the spring and then repotting it then. I feel like that might be my downfall with some of them. And so far the experiment's going really well. My Lancifolia I have hiding back there, if you can barely see, is growing really well. And then my Stromanthes stromantoides you might have saw in my last video that was like kind of pooping out on me. It's doing fine now, so I got some hope for it. So really excited. This guy, has it put off a new leaf for me? No, but it's October and I'm not really expecting anything to grow till March. So it's living and it's living its best life. So Nicholas is very happy. Thank you guys so much for watching my video today on my top 10 houseplants for the autumn 2018. If you can't tell, I have a bit of a cold right now and I'm getting a little loopy from my cold medicine, so I think I need to cut it off here. But otherwise, have a wonderful day. Thank you guys so much. Follow me on Instagram at phillyfoliage and then check out my Etsy shop in the link in the description, even though I won't really be having anything on there plant-wise until the spring. But yes, have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys in my next video. Let me know what you're looking for in future videos in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!